Hey guys and girls, hope you're all doing really well. So in my unboxing of the Phanteks P500A, I did mention that I would be taking a look at my new / old GPU in the next week or so, which is what I'll be focusing on today. Up until a few weeks ago, I was making use of a 2070 Super and thought at the time it might be a good idea to sell it in order to get ready for my next upgrade. I figured with a new generation of GPUs coming in, I might be able to pick up a 2080 Ti off of eBay for a good price, or if I'm lucky, one of the new 3000 series GPUs. Unfortunately, time has proven me wrong, and availability being what it is meant that I had to make alternative arrangements if I still wanted to do any gaming over the December holidays. So back I went to eBay, and after a little bit of digging around, in fact quite a lot of digging around, I found the following. A GTX 1080 Ti. This card was the absolute cream of the crop roughly 3 years ago, and even today is still very popular. It commands a hefty price tag on the second-hand market, still going for anywhere from $500 to $550 in extreme cases. I have, although not the specific model, I have owned one of these before. I did sell it at the time in order to do what I would call a sideways upgrade to the 2070 Super in order to experience features like ray tracing. This specific one is the Seahawk model from MSI, which means that it has a Corsair AIO attached to the GPU. And what I will be doing today is just giving it a good once over in order to make sure that it is still in good working order. I will be doing 1 or 2 performance results, some gaming benchmarks, as well as having a look at GPU clock speeds and temperatures. What I will also be doing today, along with looking at the temperatures, is also trying out my new thermal paste, which is the Thermal Grizzly Cryonaut Extreme. For those of you who know your thermal pastes will know that it pretty much doesn't get any better than Thermal Grizzly, and the new Cryonaut Extreme, at least on paper, is the best thermal interface that you can get your hands on, bar none. The only way you can get any better than that is if you start looking at liquid metal. This is the exhaust fan that I was referring to in my previous video, so I am going to kick things off by doing an installation video. The box of the Seahawk is quite large. That is mostly in part due to the AIO that is attached to the GPU. Most of the, well, actually looks like all of the original packaging and accessories still with the card. Here we have the radiator and the cooling fan. I'm not sure whether this is LED, I don't think so. I may look at replacing this at a later stage, but for now it is fine. It is very nice to see that the GPU is still packaged in the anti-static bag, which I did request, although you would be surprised nowadays how many people actually ship GPUs with no anti-static protection. So here we have the card. It is still 3 years later a very beefy card. The absolute high-end GPUs are not really coming down in size. There you can see through the plastic cover the Corsair logo on the cooling block. It does have a very nice MSI backplate. It does use one 6-pin and one 8-pin power connector. The Phanteks P500A does come with an anti-sag bracket, which I will also be making use of for the 1080 Ti. I love how quickly I can remove the side panel of the P500A. Those of you who are familiar with the Corsair 275R, it is an absolute nightmare. There is no hinge mechanism. It attaches with 4 separate screws. So basically, when you are removing the glass panel and you've removed the last screw, you need to make sure that the glass panel doesn't drop off. Okay, so obviously it would probably be easier to mount the radiator with the pipes coming out of the top. However, as we know now, this is not ideal. I will also have to contend with the pipes of the Arctic AIO, which I will be installing soon as well. So let's see if we can get them mounted with the radiator at the bottom. If I use 1 or 2 cable ties, I can make the pipes look a little bit neater, so let's have a look at doing that. So now that round 1 of testing is complete, it is time to get access to the GPU cooler so that we can replace the stock thermal paste with our very own Thermal Grizzly Cryonaut Extreme. So here we have the removed cooling block, and here is what has to be said, absolutely too much thermal paste. We will obviously be giving that a good clean and then only applying as much as we need. So firstly I will be cleaning off the excess thermal paste just with a paper cloth. And then I will be using alcohol wipes to make sure that the contact areas are nice and clean. Guys and girls, obviously you want to be as careful as you possibly can when doing this. Make sure that you are working on a non-conductive surface area, and then just be, as I've said, be as careful as you can. Those of you who are interested. This is what it looks like. It is a very thick pinkish substance. Before we head on over to the results, just a rundown of the testing methodology which I used. For the synthetic benchmarks, I made use of 3D Mark Firestrike Ultra, which runs in DX11, and 3D Mark Timespy Extreme, which runs in DX12. For the gaming benchmarks, I made use of Rise of the Tomb Raider and Metro Last Light Redux. I selected these games for their built-in benchmarks. These games are tested at the maximum settings possible with VSync turned off. The tests were run continuously for individual benchmarks and games, and I calculated the average result over 3 runs. After each game or benchmark, the PC was restarted, but it was at no point switched off or allowed to cool down. This was really to create as much heat in the GPU as possible in order to have a good look at the temperature results. The biggest difference in results came in the synthetic benchmarks. Although a difference of 3.1% between the lowest and the highest score is hardly earth-shattering. As we can see, the GPU boost stayed very consistent, as did the temperatures. The difference in the gaming benchmarks were even smaller, varying between the 1.5 and 2% mark. This can easily be put down to margin of error, although I think there is enough information to say that the results do scale. The differences in performance are just extremely small. Keep in mind that all the results you see here are the average results from 3 rounds of testing. So at the end of the day, we didn't really gain anything by replacing the thermal paste, and in the second round of testing, the maximum temperature recorded across all tests actually went up by 1 degree, although this is definitely within margin of error. A closer look at the average temperatures does reveal that in the second round of testing, although we did record our highest temperature across all tests, the average temperatures did go down as a result of replacing the thermal paste. However, keeping in mind that our highest recorded average temperature was only 58.33 degrees, this does beg the question whether replacing the thermal paste was even necessary. If you do happen to have a very high quality thermal paste already in your possession, then you can score a few extra degrees by going through the process as shown in the video. However, it is certainly not worth spending any extra money in order to shave off only 3 to 4 degrees on average. For me, this was more about just making sure that the GPU itself is still in a good working condition, and as we can see, the tests show that it is still 100% functional. What I also did is I added a batch of tests with the power limit set to 120%. As we can see, this had absolutely no effect on the results. When I did this with my 2070 Super, I saw roughly a 50 megahertz increase on the boost clock frequencies. Obviously, the 1080 Ti is an older generation and doesn't work 100% the same, and I think what I will do is I will revisit overclocking at a later stage. A better point to consider is probably whether the 1080 Ti is still worth buying in 2020, and the short answer is yes. This card will still be able to do high refresh rate gaming at 1440p for most AAA titles on high to maximum settings. 4K would obviously be a different story, and you would need to drop your image quality down probably to medium, and then you could expect somewhere in the region of 40 to 60 FPS. What you will be missing out on though is the tensor cores found in the 2000 and 3000 series NVIDIA GPUs. This is what allows you to experience features such as ray tracing and DLSS. These features are still in the early stages though, so you could get away with buying an older generation top of the range card. As these features do become more prevalent though, older cards like the 1080 Ti will slowly start fading from the scene. But for now, if you are coming from a card that is slower and older than something like the 1080 Ti, and you can pick it up for a good price, then it is definitely worth considering. Thanks for watching, guys and girls. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next one. Cheers.